The volume opens with Iceman taking a minute to take in the fact that Jennifer Walters has the last will and testament of Charles Xavier. As Iceman and the other X-Men head to Scott Summers' school, a new mutant has just caused large-scale damage to a local area. Maria Hill attempts to make contact with Malloy, only for him to freak out and cause large-scale damage again. Back at the Jean Grey School, the teachers of the Uncanny X-Men and the teachers of the Jean Grey School meet. It's revealed by the will that Xavier had met Matthew Malloy when he was younger. Due to the destructive nature that Malloy had created, Xavier placed a series of psychic blocks around the boy's mind, and also prevented the boy from becoming a mutant, throwing away his ethics and teachings. Xavier asks his students to continue this task, which results in a few heated arguments. Elsewhere, the younger members of the Uncanny X-Men debate about Cyclops' revolution, with the question being asked, are they the good guys? Maria Hill calls in the X-Men about Malloy, just as Beast realizes Malloy is the most powerful mutant in existence. The X-Men and S.H.I.E.L.D. combine their efforts to get through to Malloy. However, Malloy realizes their plans and destroys the Hellcarrier, teleporting the mutants home. Cyclops decides to take a new approach. He meets with Malloy and talks to him. Beast, meanwhile, attempts to contact governments and heroes who can help them, only to find that no one will. Malloy becomes increasingly agitated by Scott's philosophy, causing him to lash out uncontrollably. Magneto then intervenes, attempting to stop Malloy. Elsewhere, Magik goes into the past, looking for Doctor Strange in order to try and find a way to stop Malloy. As Malloy, Cyclops, and Magneto talk, Malloy becomes increasingly agitated again. The results ends in Magneto returning to the school, and Magik, Cyclops, and Malloy being attacked by S.H.I.E.L.D. Eva Bell then time travels into the past to meet Charles Xavier so he can stop Malloy. Will the X-Men stop Malloy, or will he destroy everything the X-Men have built? This volume did something very interesting, and very, very surprising as well. This volume basically takes the concept that X-Men 3, the movie, tried to present. And basically it applied the, how X-Men 3, portrayed Jean Grey as unstoppable, uncontrollable force, and Xavier basically having to create mind blocks onto Jean Grey, and applies that concept to this new mutant called Matthew Malloy. Now, in terms of taking that sort of concept and applying it to the comics, I think was a pretty interesting move on Bendis' part. Because the concept itself wasn't, in the film, isn't very well received. Partly because the movie isn't well received. But applying it in the way Bendis did was really interesting. Now, I like it to an extent, but there are some elements to this that I don't like. So I'll talk about that in just a sec. Actually, no, I'll talk about it now. The part that I didn't like about Matthew Malloy having this X-Men 3 type storyline. The problem is that Matthew Malloy's powers aren't very well defined. He seems to have all sorts of different abilities and powers. And it's not really altogether quite clear in this volume about what his powers appear to be and why he is so powerful. It's very, very strange as well. And I think with Jean Grey, I think with Jean Grey we knew what her powers were, whereas Matthew Malloy, we don't really quite know what his powers are. And also with Jean Grey, we had this we had this sort of build up to towards that storyline in X-Men 3. The reason why I like the fact that this storyline was applied is because it's a very, very interesting direction, and I very much like it when Professor X is portrayed in the way that he really is, which is Professor X has just as many bodies in the closet than Magneto does, and that Professor X isn't as perfect as he makes out to be. And I do find that concept very intriguing, and the parallels with Scott Summers, because that's mainly what this volume highlights. Is it highlights the parallel between Scott Summers and Matthew Malloy, and it basically discusses Scott Summers' relationship towards Charles Xavier, and how Charles Xavier was, thought of, how Scott Summers thought about Charles Xavier, and it's sort of this twisted version of Scott Summers actually really loves and respects Professor Xavier, but he disagrees with a lot of what Xavier did and how hypocritical he was. And the parallels between Scott Summers and Matthew Malloy all relate back to Avengers vs. X-Men. And it's really, really interesting. And actually, Avengers vs. X-Men is used quite effectively in this volume. And it really, really talks about how Scott Summers' philosophy is, and it brings Scott Summers into a new direction in the end. Another problem that I had with this book is I was a bit confused about Eva Bell's storyline. Eva Bell in the annuals that I recently reviewed, Eva Bell sort of has this sort of way of looking at time, and sort of the events that we saw in the annuals don't seem to correlate to what she's saying in this volume. And I got really, really confused about that. And basically what I mean about that is Eva Bell seems to do one thing in the annuals and do completely the other in this one. But I do really, really like Eva Bell. I think she's a great character. And the way she interacts with Professor X was awesome. Because she basically was very, like, flat out, which I kind of like. But I was very, very confused about Eva Bell in this volume. I also felt like the artwork, again, as I keep on saying about this series, is the art is just so inconsistent between issues. But there were some great panel layouts though, in the artwork, but the artwork was just so inconsistent, and the art styles was just so inconsistent. It just became really, really jarring. And I also thought some of the plots was a bit jarring as well. And this does relate back to the whole issue with Matthew Malloy's powers, and various other different factors which sort of factor in to in this book. So I have to give it about a 3 out of 5. It's a good book, don't get me wrong. And it is and 3 out of 5 is solid to me. It's a good book. So yeah. Anyway, guys, I'm Robinax1 here, and stay tuned for some more comic book reviews coming very soon. Bye.